We're going to try several problems from the practice and problem solving pages 361 and 362. After each problem, we're going to pause so that you can finish the work or graph the solution, and then you'll come back and restart the video to see if your answer is correct or if you need to make corrections on your book pages. Let's begin with number 6. In question 6, we see the inequality 8m is less than or equal to 56. So we are going to divide both sides by 8, and we get x is less than or equal to 7. So this is my solution. Now I'm going to graph that solution. So we're going to put our solution number on the number line. You need to label maybe at least one or two other numbers that goes along with that. Let me try that one again. Okay, and then you have to decide what kind of circle to put on your solution number. So in this case, the inequality sign says less than or equal to, so I'm going to put a colored in dot on the 7, and it says less than, so I'm going to be shading going to the left. Now I want you to take a look at number 7. Number 7 has that fraction in front of the variable. Because there's a fraction in front of the variable, in order to get rid of that, you have to multiply by its reciprocal. So remember that the reciprocal of -4/3 is -3/4. In this problem, we are multiplying by a negative number. So in order to solve this inequality, we have to switch that inequality sign around. Instead of a less than sign, we now have a greater than sign. And then we need to finish by doing the multiplication. Okay, so the 3's cancel and the 4's cancel. Over here on the right-hand side, we've got -8 times -3, which is 24. And then we're going to divide that by 4. Well, what's 24 divided by 4? Hopefully you said 6. So x must be greater than 6. 6 is our number on the number line. We're going to label a couple of others along the way on both sides of it. And then we go back to place that solution on the number line. We start at the 6. Our sign says greater than, so the circle is open, and we're going to be shading going to the right. Now I'd like for you to try number 8 on your own. Okay, see if you can decide what you're going to divide by on both sides. They give you that hint with the boxes. And then see if you can come up with the correct solution. We'll graph it together in just a moment. You should have gotten x is less than -8. Remember that because you divided by -7, okay, so when you divide by that -7 right here, on both sides, you have to switch your inequality sign around to be a less than sign instead of a greater than sign. So now as you go to graph it, you know that you're going to have an open circle at -8. And you're going to be shading in the less than direction, which is to the left. Okay, now go ahead and try number 9. See if you know what to do on both sides, and see if you can get your answer before you check here in the video. You should have gotten m is less than or equal to -10. Okay, now go ahead and let's look at graphing. Put a circle on the -10, and this time that circle is going to be colored in because we have a less than or equal to. And shading in the less than direction means to shade to the left. Now I want you to try questions 10 and 11. In both of these questions, you are given the inequality and asked to solve it. And then I want you to not only solve it, but to tell in a statement about that solution. Okay? Pause the video while you try those and come back and check your answers. First, take a look at the solution here on number 10. You had x divided by 6 is less than or equal to 3. Okay, so you need to multiply both sides by 6, and x is less than or equal to 18. So what that means is there were no more than 18 fruit snacks in the bag. In number 11, when you solve for x, you divide both sides by 17, and x is greater than 6, which means Eli needs to read more than 6 ebooks per month. Now take a look at number 12. Go ahead and take a look at part A with setting up the inequality based on the information you're given in the problem. Then we'll work on part B, which is solving that inequality. Since Brittany can spend no more than $15 for her the new fish in her aquarium, we know that the situation is going to be represented by a less than or equal to $15. That's her limit, okay? What we also know is that the fish are $3 each. So F is the number of fish that she can buy, and she's going to be spending $3 per fish. So 3F is less than or equal to 15 tells us how many fish she can buy for not spending more than $15. Now, in part B, I want you to solve that inequality and see if you can determine how many fish Brittany can buy for her aquarium. Hopefully when you solved, you found that F has to be less than or equal to 5. In other words, if she can't spend more than $15, then that means she can buy no more than 5 fish. On this last page, we're going to solve questions 13, 14, and 16. So let's first take a look at number 13. Isaac has a bag of N peanuts. He shares the peanuts with 5 of his friends. Each person gets at least 18 peanuts. The inequality 18 is less than or equal to N divided by 6 represents this situation. Graph the solution of this inequality. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to figure out how many peanuts is this, or how many peanuts were there in the bag. So we're going to multiply both sides of the inequality by 6, and we find that we should have the variable on the right side of that inequality. We're going to have to fix that in just a minute. But see first if you can determine what 18 times 6 is. Hopefully you got 108. But what this means is that 108 is less than or equal to N. So N must be greater than or equal to 108. Notice it's the same inequality sign pointed at the opening toward the N. Okay? So since the opening is towards the N, we know it's going in the right direction because of the way it was facing before. It was a less than sign, but when I move the N to the other side, I have to also switch the inequality. Now it does say that it wants us to graph our solution. So up here above, I'm going to be graphing. So the first thing that I need to do is make a mark showing 108. Then I might need to make a mark on either side of that, and I can either count by ones, so make that 107, or I could count by tens or something else like that. Now, because this sign says greater than or equal to 108, that means I'm going to have a solid circle, and greater than means that it's going to be shaded going to the right. So what this means is that Isaac has a bag that has 108 or more peanuts inside. Now take a look at number 14. We're going to solve the inequality in part A, and then in part B, we're going to do some reasoning. So first, I'd like for you to try to solve the inequality in part A. When you're done, restart the video, and you can check your answer. So right now, you should hit pause and stop and try it on your own first. Did you get x is greater than -4? Well, I hope so, because when you divided both sides by a -3, you have to reverse that inequality sign. So the less than sign has to get switched around and be a greater than sign because you divided by a negative number. So that goes to our reasoning here in part B, which is how do we know that we're going to switch the direction of the inequality sign without actually solving it? Well, the number in front of x is negative. So when I solve the inequality, I'm going to have to divide by that negative number. And when I divide by that negative number, I switch the inequality sign around. So whenever the number that's in front of x or the variable is negative, then I know I have to switch the sign. Okay. Last but not least, let's take a look at number 16. Number 16 seems to be really difficult because I see decimals, I see some numbers that I'm not always comfortable with using. But what I want you to remember is that these decimals and fractions are no more difficult than whole numbers if you know how to use your calculator. In this case, what I want you to do is I want you to leave the decimal and I want you to change that negative 38 3/4 into its decimal equivalent, which is 38 point. Now you need to know what 3/4 is as a decimal. So to do that, do 3 divided by 4 on your calculator, and you should get 75 hundredths. Okay? Think about 3/4 of a dollar is 75 cents. So now that I have this in my decimal format, I can simply solve this inequality by dividing both sides by that negative 6 25 hundredths. And what should I do with that inequality sign here? Well, I'm dividing by a negative, which means I need to flip it around. So my x has to be less than, what do I get when I take a negative 38 75 hundredths? And I divide it by a negative 6 25 hundredths. I get x is less than 6 2/10. So because x is not a whole number, I have to be careful about how I show this on the graph. So here's my solution to the inequality, and now I'm going to graph that on the number line. So 6 2/10 is somewhere over here after the 6 and before the 7, and it's less than, which means I'm going to be shading going to the left. Get my little eraser out here and clean up those lines. There we go. Okay, so you should be done now with all of the work that goes with lesson 5. And you should be ready for your other work now as soon as you have finished your notes. Check to make sure that you have all the work that goes with each of these problems.